Good morning, folks. This is Judge Executive Al Mattingly. We're going to have another COVID update today, and with me today is my good friend Mike Buchanan, Judge Executive Mike Buchanan from Warren County. I thought it would be interesting that we would get what a perspective, another county's perspective of what's going on with COVID. Before we get there, and I'm going to take this mask off because I have to have my reading glasses on, and there's no one in here. But as I've said, every time we've had one of these, this is probably the most important thing you can do to show respect to those folks around you. By you wearing this mask, you're protecting other folks. By them wearing their mask, they are protecting you. When both of you wear masks and social distance, the chance of transmitting that disease from one person to another is negligible. So today was a bad day for Daviess County, and we've been used to a lot of bad days here lately. We had another 92 positive cases, and we also reported 3 deaths in Daviess County. That brings our total of positive cases in Daviess County to 3,164. And our deaths in Daviess County to 48. So I would ask that you just pause for a second and say a little prayer for those families who won't have these moms and dads and grandmothers and grandfathers around for this Thanksgiving. Thank you. I also would note that currently, this was as of yesterday, because our health department is so overwhelmed. I've not gotten the right totals, but as of yesterday, we had 17 folks who were in the hospital with COVID. That's up from about 2 or 3 back in June, and the death rate is directly proportional to the number of folks that we have in the hospital. And what's even more frightening is back in June, I might have 25 active cases. That means people who are out there, they have COVID, they've been diagnosed with COVID. Today, I've got in excess of 600 active cases out there that we know of. Those are people who have been tested and have tested positive. So the virus is real, guys, and until we can get a vaccine here, and until we can get our most vulnerable, our first responders vaccinated, we need to do everything that we can to help prevent the spread. One of the things I would tell you or want to tell you is that, as you are aware, the Green River District Health Department does COVID testing, and they will be testing at the Daviess County Health Center December 2nd, 9th, 16th, 22nd, and 29th. 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And you should call them before you show up. On their website are the testing times and dates for other grad counties. The other thing that I want you to know is that flu shots for the common everyday flu, the thing that we all wanted to avoid in the past, but now I think we'd rather have the flu than COVID. Flu shots, including high-dose vaccines for those 65 years of age or older, are also available. So you need to call them and set up that appointment. So with that being said, the update on Daviess County, Judge Buchanan, welcome.
Thank you, Judge Mattingly. I appreciate you inviting me on here today.
Yes, sir. And tell me, how is Warren County coping with COVID? What's going on in your county? What the cases, the deaths, those kinds of things, are they similar to Daviess County?
Well, we're coping, Al, but yes, they're remarkably similar to Daviess County's numbers. And as far as active cases or new cases today, we're not quite as high as you all, but we are unfortunately a great deal higher than we were 4 or 5 weeks ago. About 5 weeks ago, we had about 15 people in both hospitals here, and 2 on ventilators, and today we have well over 60 and about 7 on ventilators. Now and 5 weeks ago we had literally weeks of 0 deaths here. Mm-hmm. And now we're having 1 or 2, or in one case 3 in a day, and that's not a good thing. I think that our counties are similar in population. I think there are a few different things that make us different than you all. You're on the river. We're not. We're on the interstate. You're not. So we have a lot of transient population coming through. We also have Western Kentucky University, a fairly large university here in Warren County. And I don't believe that you'll find, at least this is what is being reported to me, that there's not a lot of transmission on campus. On campus and in the classrooms, you'll find that they're living in a structured environment. And a great deal of it's on virtual classrooms. In our two school districts here, we have practically no transmission within the schools. So when they're in school, that's probably the safest place that they can possibly be. Unfortunately, we're only meeting every other day for different students. They're on an A-B schedule, or what we call a purple and gold schedule here in the Bowling Green school system. But while they're out of school, their parents are trying to go to work, and they have a little more leeway, so they're out running around with their friends and in other people's homes, and aren't quite as careful as they are at school.
Judge, people are the same regardless of whether they're in Daviess County or Warren County. We found, as a matter of fact, this time last week, I had the 3 school superintendents for Owensboro Public Schools, Daviess County Public Schools, and the Owensboro Catholic School System. They were all saying the same thing. The issue wasn't transmission, any direct transmission from pupil to pupil. What they were having, one school system, Owensboro Public Schools, had to shut down to in-person instruction because the ancillary people, the cooks, the bus drivers, folks like that were under quarantine. I was a little surprised when the governor shut down all school systems in-person education.
I was very surprised because we had just discussed this like 2 days before. And of course, we had told him that we had absolutely no desire for the schools to be closed down or for any shutdowns, broad shutdowns of any businesses. We were looking for additional authority and indemnification to act on the behalf of the state so that we could actually enforce the restrictions he already had. And we were hoping to close down only those businesses who refused.
Violation, right.
And,
well, Judge, the conversation we're having is the same conversation a lot of us had last Wednesday prior to the governor's meeting with
right.
the mayors and the judges. And I was quite surprised when that request or that authority wasn't issued by the governor. As a matter of fact, I was a little peeved, I guess, that he didn't find it fit. And don't get me wrong, I'm not beating the governor up. I wouldn't have his job. But I thought that would have been the perfect opportunity to let you know, let me know, let the mayors know what was coming down the pike that afternoon or that evening so that we could have prepared, but unfortunately wasn't shared with us.
I wish he had, because it caught me totally off guard. And
yes.
And again, I'm not slamming the governor because I mean, he's had the shortest honeymoon of any governor.
That's correct.
He has really been inundated with this.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you were sworn in the same year that you were after me, I think. But
oh no, you're so much older than me. You were in what, 96 maybe?
Than you just look older than I am.
Yeah, no, I've been, it's really hard here in Daviess County.
Well, in 94, within a week after I was sworn in, we had this huge blizzard and
yes.
cars buried on the backcountry roads with people in them and people pulling off the interstates. And we had to set up all these basements of churches with cots, and we had the Salvation Army, and everyone was going to work to try to help people out.
Mhm.
We had the whole place froze over, and we had to call in the National Guard, and they reported to me, and I had absolutely no earthly idea
Right.
what to do with them. So it was a pretty short honeymoon for me.
Right.
But those type of disasters are short term.
Short term and localized most of the time. That didn't affect
Exactly.
120 counties.
Exactly. Well, this affects every nation
Right.
in the world, and of
Correct.
course this has been tough. I have to confess, this is the toughest year that I've had
Yes.
since I've been county judge executive. Since you're talking about, since we mentioned that it is a global thing, one of the differences we may have over you is we have a considerable population of refugees that have settled
Yes.
here in Bowling Green and Warren County. And there's a language barrier with many of them. Many of them work in jobs like in the chicken plucking industry over at Ohio County, and they come back to Bowling Green at the end of the day, carpooling together, spreading it to all their friends and throughout their neighborhoods. So we've had some clusters like that, and
That was we had those same, the Burmese folks, really hardworking people, very family oriented, a different culture, and they would ride 10 and 12 in a vehicle, and then they come home and 3 and 4 families would join together to have dinner, and it almost impossible to convey the needs, but our health department, we got through that surge pretty well, and so yes, and I know that Bowling Green is one of those refugee centers where people are coming into Kentucky through there. Again, let's go back to the governor. I wouldn't have his job. He's been faced with, you compound the virus along with unemployment and all the other things that he has had to do. But the simple fact that a lot of people forget, again, when we talk about let's not do a one size fits all, that things are different. Well, when you're in a health crisis, a pandemic, that virus doesn't know a county line. It doesn't know a state line. And you guys are what, 40 miles from Nashville? We're 30 miles from Evansville, Indiana, Vanderburgh County, where it's running rampant. How is that impacted? Do you see, I guarantee you there are a lot, you are probably an economic hub for the surrounding Kentucky counties as we are, but then our folks go out into other areas, you to Nashville and ours to Evansville. How have you seen any impact there?
Well, I haven't so much recently, but in the past surge, we saw that when the restaurants were closed here, everyone was going to Nashville to eat in restaurants. People were accessing the services just out of state. Right. You were recommending and trying to advise them not to do that, but people are people, and we're not going to lock them up for doing something stupid. Right. But we are seeing the same sort of thing here. We got our population, and I suspect yours as well, as we plateaued and started to feel like we were getting back to normal. We were all, I say we because that includes me, we were all tired of this.
Yes.
And we got sloppy. We got complacent and became too casual with our friends. And I think the biggest problem with where we are today is because we've become so complacent and decided that we're going to face this and go ahead and go about our lives a little prematurely.
Yes.
We really need to be more conscious of it now than ever. We're getting close to having accessibility to vaccines. And if we get the vaccines and if people take them, there are a lot of people who refuse to take vaccines. I know people, including my own children and grandchildren, who won't take a flu shot. Mm-hmm. Against my recommendations, I asked them to please take it. I take it every year.
So do I. And there are a lot of folks out there who would tell you, and I even had someone ask me about that. He says, well, I've heard you could get the flu from the vaccine. And the simple fact is you're not getting a live virus. You're getting a part of the protein coat that makes up the virus. causing your body to produce antibodies to attack that little segment of protein. The same thing is going to happen with this virus. You're going to have a vaccine that is going to induce you to produce antibodies against that protein coat and destroy it. But there are those who will absolutely swear up and down they're not going to do it. I've always looked at it in this respect. Somebody said, well, if we wear our mask, then we shouldn't have to get a flu shot this year, right? Because there shouldn't be any flu. And I said, well, the mask is going to be my primary line of defense, but I want that secondary line of defense, kind of like football, right? You got linemen, linebackers, and the secondary or safeties. And you want as many lines of defense against something like this. And I hear people all the time, Judge, talk about, I remember back at the beginning, well, I don't even know anybody that's ever had this, or I don't know anyone who has died from it. I don't know that there's one person that you could talk to today that hasn't experienced someone who has had it and somebody who's experienced the tragedy of losing a loved one. So in my opinion, you use whatever tools you have at hand. Right now, we have masks, sanitizing your hands, social distancing, and avoiding large crowds. And I'm a pretty much a social animal. You've seen me at these conventions. I like to talk to other judges and slap them on the back and go to dinner and do those things. This has been hard for me to get used to, not to shake hands. You're a politician. What do politicians do? Shake hands. Hello, how are you? It's awfully tough not to do this. But as I told somebody, I'm a politician by election. I'm a plumbing, heating, cooling contractor by profession. I'm a biologist by education. I understand a little bit about this. I know what's going on. And as I said, trying to stem a natural virus and contain it, it's almost impossible to do. And we need to do everything in our hand to do that. Tell me how has this virus affected the operations of Warren County government, the government in Bowling Green? Has it gotten into your workforce? Is it causing any issues there?
I think it was inevitable that we were going to have it creep into our workforce, although we've been extraordinarily lucky and very cautious from the very beginning. We closed down the courthouse for a while. We were only serving through the windows, the outer windows. We were providing all services, but right now our courthouse is, although it's open, it is closed to people just walking through freely. We're allowing them in one per department at a time. And we have really created an environment within every department where people can either spread out or have physical barriers. And so we are protecting our staff as best we can and the public. However, we have had recently one person in the clerk's office who was diagnosed or was found to be positive and had no symptoms, but she was going in to get tested because she was having elective surgery. And so she needed to do that. So we closed down that division of the clerk's office, the motor vehicle division, for 2 weeks and sent everybody home. Just exactly what the public health advised us to do. We also had similar situations in the sheriff's department on one side of their department, and we've had similar situations in virtually every department. Mm-hmm. Our jail, I think I told you a couple of days ago that our jail has had 0. And that's technically still true. However, we have just yesterday had one who had been recently released who was found to have positive COVID disease. And so we're testing everyone in that pod right now. We feel comfortable that we're doing all the right things. As I know our jailer tells me that you've got a great jailer over there. Yes. And they talk about things pretty regularly. And our parks department has been affected adversely. We've had a number of people, 1 or 2 at a time, that have had COVID, in spite of the fact that we are really, really close and we go by all the CDC guidelines. But it has frustrated a lot of the of citizens because we're cutting out most of the basketball until at least we're reviewing it in January. But I think most of the leagues have decided to avoid the 2021 season altogether. We got through volleyball and we got through football, but we've had to really cut things back in every sport. And that's for parents and family.
Yeah, and you know, here in Daviess County, our parks system, pretty much everything was completed prior to this latest surge, prior to the governor's mandates. I know they're going by the Kentucky High School Athletic Association's guidelines and all of those kinds of things. And I meet with my Parks Department every Monday, just looking at what might become. We had a disc golf tournament outside, people spread out, but that was the last thing that's going to go on in our Parks Department. We have Christmas at Panther Creek Park. It'll be a drive-through. You won't leave your vehicle. And we're really notifying, we're going to go ahead with sign-ups for spring sports, but we're notifying people that it's subject to being canceled. And we actually are not going to rent out any park shelters until May now, and typically they start renting out in March, but it looks to me that it'll be the middle of next year, even if we're able to get sufficient quantity of vaccine for people to be vaccinated and develop the immunity where things would be safe. We pretty much have done the same thing, Judge. We've had a few cases in Road Department, Parks Department. Our jail, I'm not certain that we've had any tested positive cases. We really do a good job. Art Maglinger is a jailer. Appointed him several years ago, and he was reelected just in 2018 for his own term. We did have a pod of 33 guys where there was a suspected case. We tested the whole pod. Thank you, Lord. Nobody was tested positive. So we are, you know, we have 2 paid county fire departments. I know that I've got 1 positive case. I know that we've had positive cases at the parks and the road department. Here in Daviess County Fiscal Court, to come into our courthouse, you have to have a mask on. We have places on the floor socially distancing people. And then we have the sheriff's department, the PVA, clerk's office, and until just recently, emergency management. Those departments were left up to, we would set a broad protocol, and then they were left up to handling those protocols within their own departments. And it for the most part, folks have pretty much followed the guidelines. Every now and then you get 1 or 2 of the yahoos who aren't going to wear a mask. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. But for the most part, people are, I think people, you were right. It's COVID fatigue had set in, but I think this latest surge, the latest uptick in folks who are dying, I think there's a renewed belief now, hey, this is real, and this is something I do need to do to protect myself and my family.